You're listening to a Comics XF podcast.
X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. I'm Adam, and this is normally your weekly X-Men podcast where we rank every X-Men story from A to Z, but this week I was at New York Comic Con. So today you're going to hear my interviews with Wolverine and X-Force writer Ben Percy, X-Men Unlimited and Deadpool 7 Slaughters artist Philip Sevy, Jean Grey artist Bernard Chang, Excalibur, X-Corp, Knights of X, and Captain Britain scribe Tini Howard, Immortal X-Men and Fall of the House of X announced artist Lucas Werneck, and X-Men artist extraordinaire Joshua Cassara. New York Comic Con is always crowded, so please excuse any of the background noise, and I will catch up with you at the end of the episode. All right, I'm here with Wolverine and X-Force scribe Ben Percy. Ben, how's your weekend going?
So far, so good. Just got in last night, so I'm on the show floor for the first time and taking in the 200,000 nerds all around me.
It definitely seems a lot more crowded this morning than it did yesterday. Are you ready for this kind of humanity push?
I like to be behind the booth more than walking the floor. I get a little claustrophobic and sweaty, and I might, go into a berserker rage if I get trapped behind a bunch of slow people.
So, from what we're seeing from promotional materials, it looks like the Krakoa era is winding down. You have had the absolute delight of writing Wolverine and X-Force throughout this entire thing. Are you anticipating that the ongoing kind of longer arcs of those storylines are going to wrap up with this era? Or do you see these books as kind of just going on and on and on?
Well, I don't know what I'm allowed to say in regard to that question. I will say that to write the X-Men at any point would be amazing, but to write it during this Krakoan era and to be a definitive part of constructing those narratives and character arcs has been just a total joy and a privilege, and I hope that this Krakoan era goes down as one of the more sort of notable chapters in X history.
I can't imagine that it won't. I think the quality, is depending on what you're looking at, is kind of mainly remained fairly high, So one of the things that you've been doing right now in X-Force is finally wrapping up what feels like the culmination of the Colossus storyline with the writer, the narrator.
Yeah, chronicler.
The chronicler, thank you. One of the things that I was thinking about the last issue that I read was, do you see yourself in the character of the chronicler in terms of being a writer and, kind of the chronicler seems like he's also feeling a little bit of anxiety about sort of where he's at in the writing process. How does that sit with you as you're writing that character?
That's an interesting question. I would say that every character has a bit of me in it. That's part of the experience of writing. It's almost theatrical, where I'm thinking about how would this person stand? What sort of clothes would they wear? How would they say this? And so on. But in the case of the chronicler, I'm able to do something interesting. There's never been really a mutant with this power before. And I thought it would be, it's been seeded from the very beginning of X-Force, this long, slow reveal of this character who can bend the world around his writing. But he has to have a muse, and so Colossus is his muse. And I think that there are certain things about that character that can be relatable to any writer, where, sometimes you're trapped in a contract, or you're trapped by deadlines, or you're pushed by editors or publishers in a certain direction that you're resentful of. And so, he is under the thrall of Mikhail and doing Mikhail's bidding. And he, resents that, but he's also producing what he recognizes as his greatest work. And he was sort of like this, notable writer beforehand, but subject to, his alcoholic tendencies and laziness and everything else. And so, with a gun almost literally to his head, he's been forced to write this story, but it's sort of like a transcendent work that he's ultimately, wants to, in tension with Mikhail, take control of in the end.
I think it's a really interesting concept, and it's really fun to see you develop that over time. I think the other thing that's been a real slow burn that came to a head within this last year is what you've been doing with Beast.
Yeah.
I think many of us in the Comics XF Slack really our heads exploded when the X-Force base got up and walked away. How long have you had sort of your end game for that character in your head? Has this been from the beginning, or is it
from
the very beginning?
I have novelistic tendencies, and I always know my end when I begin anything. So in this case, sometimes in comics things get cut short. Thankfully, in this case, I've been given the runway I need, and I wanted there to be a kind of heat dynamic between Wolverine and Beast from the very beginning. And, you see that play out in different ways. The way they diverge, the way that they're hunting each other, the way they sit down in that restaurant and have a meal together in this, moment of uneasy truce. And so their collision has been planned from the very get-go. And Beast has a code. You can call him a villain, but he has a code. And the code is in favor of mutant kind. It's the greatest good for the greatest number of mutants. It's utilitarian to its core. And so no matter what war crimes he's committing, he's ultimately doing so for the mutants. And so Wolverine recognizes this. He recognizes, there's a recognition, too, that every good villain thinks that they're the hero. That's the case with Beast. So we'll see where those two end up at the end of their storylines.
I'm very interested because Beast has such a varied history through his mutations. I'm thinking about Morrison and Silvestri's kind of sublime version of White Beast in the end. I'm thinking of kind of the all-new X-Men version where he's more of a sorcerer. Yeah. There's so much you could do with that character. Do you see him as still part of the X-Men, or do you see him as more of a supervillain moving forward?
Well, you just look at the dynamics on the island. Here you have Apocalypse, as an advocate, an ally. Yeah. Here you have Magneto sitting on the Quiet Council, and Emma Frost, and so you took all of these so-called villains off the table. I saw an opportunity for others to potentially rise up as, complicated frenemies at first, and then ultimately, somebody who's diverged entirely from the unit of X-Force and is at war with them. War of ideas. So, I don't see him. He doesn't think of himself as a supervillain, just to repeat that. He thinks of himself as a superhero. He thinks in the long run that people will look back on his actions and think that he was right.
Okay.
So, you see those shirts where it's Magneto was right, or Killmonger was right, and we'll see if any Beast is right tees end up on the show floor.
Amazing. So, Ben, I know that comics is not all that you do. I'm looking down at some of your novels here. You want to just promote what the most recent one is so that people know?
I have this series called The Comet Cycle.
Yep.
And it's essentially my attempt to create my own Marvel or DC universe. It's my own sandbox. It's infinitely generative. The latest book is The Sky Vault. That doesn't mean it's book 3, but you can read them in any order.
Yes.
Just like you can pick up Wonder Woman and Batman and Superman.
It's a shared universe.
Shared universe situation, right? So Sky Vault has to do with some mysterious weather phenomena in Fairbanks, Alaska. People are seeing things in the clouds. They're hearing things in the radio waves. A plane disappears for a minute in the skies over Fairbanks, and there are a lot of people trying to figure out what is going on, and it all traces back to a World War II laboratory that's present there that is simultaneously occurring with the Manhattan Project. It's called the Alaska Project.
Nice. My co-host just, Zack, he just read this. He loved it. He thought it was really great. So I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you so much for taking a couple minutes, and enjoy the con.
Yeah. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Ben. Okay, I am here with Philip Sevy. Phil, how's your con going so far?
So far, so good. It's only Thursday morning, I think, and it's been really crazy busy.
Are you getting a lot of people stopping at the table, checking out your stuff?
Yeah, I just put out art for Deadpool 7 Slaughters, which I did a short story in. It's out in a few weeks, and I've had people buying pages right off the bat, so...
That's really great, because 7 Slaughters is multiple stories? What's the pitch for that book?
Yeah, so it's a big anthology book that is a week in the life of Deadpool. So each creative team took a day, and I got to work with Cullen Bunn on a story where we kind of bounce around all the multiverse of Deadpool.
That's really great. So you have had the opportunity to work on a few different X projects over the last couple of years. What has been your favorite?
That I've worked on,
Yeah.
X-Men-wise? That's a really good question. So the first story I did in X-Men Unlimited, I got to work with Torrin Groenbeck, and Torrin's amazing. And it was a Hope story, and my favorite X-Men is Cable. So I emailed her. We had never met before. This is my first Marvel gig, and I had just the audacity to be like, is there a way to put Cable in this story? And she was amazing, and she was like, yeah, I'll find a way to put him in. And the way she worked him in was just really fantastic and really kind of a great emotional like climax and cathartic moment for the two of them. So I don't know if that's like the favorite thing I've worked on, but that moment, that was really special to do that.
That's not the only Unlimited story you did, but there's another one I want to talk to you about. But I did want to ask, because we've talked to Declan Shalvey, who kind of started X-Men Unlimited with Hickman, about the challenges of that vertical format. And I was curious, did you find it challenging? Are there things that you found invigorating about incorporating that format?
Yeah, I really enjoy that format because of the uniqueness of it. I did a little bit of work for Webtoon back in the day.
Oh, okay.
And I've had some friends who've done some really long-running Webtoons. And, like, they would come over to my house and be drawing, and I'd be watching over their shoulder to see, like, oh, okay, here's a way you can incorporate, the motion of reading downward into your storytelling. So right from the bat, I was just trying to think of ways to take, sometimes instead of cutting between panels for different beats, if there's a way to create a single image so your cuts essentially happen as you scroll down. So whether it's someone fighting through a crowd of people or a pan down a building or other things like that, what is a way we can use the way the format works to change the storytelling? And it's been a real fun challenge.
Yeah, one of the things Declan talked to us about was the idea of not only thinking about it in terms of the vertical format, but also maybe how it could be reprinted later. Is that also something that's going through your mind as you're, I'm sitting next to your portfolio here where you're selling pages. Is that something else that's going through your mind as you're working in that format?
Yeah, so for most of the stuff I've done for Unlimited, I wasn't too concerned about that. I'm working on some X-Men Unlimited again right now, which I don't know when it will be announced, but it'll be out in a couple months. And with that, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this traditionally. So when I lay out my pages, I am laying them out to work as a traditional page and laying them out to work as a vertical scrolling comic. So it's almost like a little bit of double work, but sometimes I'm a crazy man, and it felt like a fun challenge that also gives me original art to sell at the same time.
Yeah, I feel like that aftermarket thing is kind of an important part of the process, right?
Yeah, it is. I'm coming to find out more and more. Like that's can be a large source of income. So
are you bouncing back and forth between doing digital and traditional? The stuff I'm looking at here, I'm assuming is traditional pencils with ink over it.
Yep. Yeah. So I've pretty much been all digital for a couple of years now. And then when I got offered this Deadpool story, I was like, you know what? I read Cullen's script, and it was large splash pages and big images of really cool stuff. I was like, I'm going to do these traditionally. So I picked up a pen for the first time in 2 years and prayed that it worked, and it still did. So since then, I've started to transition all of my Marvel stuff to traditional, so I'll have the originals.
I think that's fantastic. I did want to ask you about the other Unlimited story that I really am fond of, which is the one that has Marrow in it.
Yes.
Marrow is one of my favorite characters, and the way you depicted Marrow, I think, was very unique. Marrow has had so many different iterations over the years, whether it be Chris Pachalo or what Joe Mad did with the character, all the way up through right now. I forget who the artist is doing Realm of X, but some people approach her more as sort of a beautiful princess, some as an ugly Morlock.
Yeah.
Where was your head at in depicting that character?
Yeah, so we were kind of taking cues that Jerry and Stefano Casilli had dropped when they did their Marauders story with Marrow. So I was just looking at the way Stefano designed her and then kind of adding my own spin to it. I think my work is a little bit more angular and jagged than the really kind of smooth work that Stefano does. So I was just finding kind of that aggression in Marrow, but not necessarily embracing like full angry bone monster that I've seen her depicted before. So,
okay, so you said you got some more Unlimited coming up.
Yep.
You've got this Deadpool book coming out. What is like the dream if you could work on just any X project whatsoever? Is there something that like you're constantly maybe going to editorial about and saying, hey, if there was this, I'd love to do it?
I think something with Cable or X-Force would probably be my dream. That's kind of, I mean, he's my favorite character, and because I grew up reading comics in the 90s, X-Men comics specifically, and as a kid, you're reading Cable's entire history, and you're like, comics can be anything, and it's insane, and it's so exciting and so fun. So I've always kind of had a soft spot for him. So something like that would probably be a project, but just getting to work on the X-Men, starting kind of my first thing at Marvel being X-Men, it's my favorite comic. It's what made me want to draw comics, so it's kind of a dream gig regardless of who I'm drawing.
I think that's fantastic, and congratulations. I mean, it's really exciting. Are there any other projects that we could, help promote for you? What else you got going on?
Those are the main things. Some of the other stuff I'm working on the side hasn't been announced yet. But yeah, I did an Edge of Venomverse series with Clay Chapman and Jay Holtum. And then there was the X-Men stuff. There's another Marvel Unlimited project that I did over the summer that hasn't come out yet. So I'm like, every couple of days I'll Google to be like, when are they announcing this book? But yeah, then I'm back in the X office now, and I'll be there for the next couple months. And when they announce what it is and kind of how it ties into everything, it's going to be really exciting. It's some fun stuff.
That's really great. Phil, thank you so much for taking a couple minutes, and I hope you have an amazing con this weekend. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right, and I am here with Jean Grey artist Bernard Chang. Bernard, how's your con going so far?
Excellent. It's always good to be back in New York.
Are you local, or is this a far trip for you?
I'm based in Los Angeles.
Okay. So do you like New York Comic Con, or is this like not one of your favorite shows?
New York is the mecca of comics, or at least it used to be. And I went to school here. I went to Pratt Institute in Brooklyn.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So New York was one of my first comic book conventions ever.
It's really cool. So I have this X-Men podcast, Battle of the Atom. On Comics XF, our website, we've been reviewing Jean Grey, and the art is fantastic. How did you get hooked up with doing this particular project?
Marvel came out and asked if I was interested in working on another X-Men project. A couple years ago, we collaborated on Children of the Atom.
Yep.
And then when they said that Luis was going to be writing it, it was an instant yes. Because Luis Simonson was one of the writers that when I was collecting comics as a teenager, I used to read all of her books. And so it's always, how do you put it? In comics as a professional, you get to work with a lot of different people, but it's also kind of a bucket list item where you get to work with creators that, I grew up admiring. So it's been but it's one of those projects that you really like. I know for myself, there was a lot of personal passion putting into the project.
It also feels like Wheezy is kind of bringing in a lot of her own memories of the books, and the issue hasn't come out yet, but you're about to get to the Inferno issue with Matty Pryor. That's actually one of the comics that Simonson worked on. How much are you going back to those original issues to get inspiration, or do you feel like you have the freedom kind of take it where you want to take it?
Well, they provided me a lot of reading reference. Again, some of the stuff I had to go back. Some of the stuff I kind of skipped over or didn't read later on. I started working professionally at 20, so there was a period of time where then I just couldn't catch up with the current timeline or storyline. A lot of it was staying true to what Louise had envisioned. She's one of the quintessential Jean Grey writers. So for myself as a storyteller, I want to be able to keep true to her initial intent while kind of translating what she wrote into more of a visual format.
Now, you've had obviously like a lot of visual freedom because we've seen the characters in some different costumes that we've never seen them in before. How does that design process work for you?
Design is actually a lot of fun. I actually enjoy designing characters' costumes. For the versions in the issue 1 and issue 2, a lot of it was trying to pay homage to the previous original versions of the X-Men, of Jean Grey. The second issue was more of a transition from the first issue, how that universe might look progressed into a separate form. Looking back to her timeline, Jean Grey's timeline, going from work from Dave Cockrum through John Byrne. You know, the third issue kind of takes place, I think, more Silvestri was more involved in the X-Men at that point. And so there was also a progression, too, in the style of the drawing, but also in the storytelling. And so, for me, the challenge was to pay respect to a lot of what was going on at that time, but then also coming at it with a little bit more of what I would do if I had the reins of the story at that time, and also with the skill set that I have now. You know, sometimes you want to stay true to the original fans, what they remember and cherish. And it's almost, you know, you can never win everybody over. And so for me, I really tried to put focus with Louise. And throughout this, you know, emailed her and asked her to make sure that she was okay with everything that was happening in terms of the stuff that I was drawing.
So did you have the scripts for the entire mini already when you started working on it, or was it one issue at a time and you're kind of getting surprised by where she's dropping things as you go?
Well, there was before you start, there's an overall kind of like plot lines for what the whole arc is going to be about. And for this series, we actually worked in plot format.
Okay.
Which is like the old Marvel school style, which is the style that I prefer working at. You know, nowadays, most comic book scripts, they are scripts, are, you know, fully flushed out, panel to panel with all the dialogue written. Whereas when I first started drawing back at Valiant, it was very much like a Marvel style, where you get a plot, a paragraph or so per page, maybe a little dialogue here or there, but it's a real collaborative effort. And I think that's what also, for me, in this Jean Grey project, was so idealized, is that we really got to work in that format and collaborate with Louise in producing the entire comic.
I think that's so interesting to be using kind of like more of a Marvel house style with her scripting over your art as opposed to having it fully fledged, because that's unusual for the current market.
For the current market, yeah. And it was a great way, I figured, also for her to, you know, flex her wings a little bit too, to be able to kind of work in that format. And for me, also allowed me a little bit more freedom in terms of paneling, pacing, tempo, and I'm glad that everything worked out great. You know, again, every time I turn in a few pages or at the end of every issue, I'm a little hesitant because I want to make sure that, again, hey guys,
we're witnessing a beautiful toast here.
You know, again, staying true to her vision for the character, because again, Jean Grey is so tied to Louise, and she is so knowledgeable in that universe that's who really I was drawing the book for.
I think that's really beautiful. The last thing I want to ask you about, because I know you're busy, is one of the things that we talked about behind the scenes when we got the reader's copy of issue 2 was how, I believe the term that we threw around was yassified Professor X looked. He just looked absolutely gorgeous. And I'm just curious, when you think about your style and bringing it to the characters, are you thinking about making everybody look hot? Or is that just an after effect of your style?
Professor X actually was very difficult to draw. I mean, you think, you know, he's a bald guy, and but there's so many different versions of Professor X, right? And then also now you have the movie versions. So you got Captain Picard sitting in the back of your head, right? How do you kind of... And there's younger versions and older versions. Usually when you're drawing a comic book, it takes 2 or 3 issues to get a hang of a character. Because the character doesn't show up in every page. So Professor X, I'm just happy that you guys like Professor X. I was not satisfied with my version. Because I felt like I was still playing with him. He didn't appear enough. Even Magneto, I wish I had a little bit more time to kind of like flush out Magneto in the first issue. So, because I'm kind of going in between. Also, the version I like was a Jim Lee Savage Land version. with the long flowing hair. So, because earlier versions, he always had a helmet on a lot. And then I also like drawing stubble on Magneto because he has that contrast with Professor X, who's always very clean cut. So yeah, I'm glad people like it.
Very much enjoying the book. I'm excited to read the next couple issues. And thank you so much for taking a couple minutes today.
Issue 3, very exciting. Issue 4, even more so. Again, it's just a pleasure for me to be able to work on these characters that I grew up admiring, adoring, collecting. And hopefully I'm able to share a lot of that passion and love that I have for the craft with the readers.
It's definitely coming across. So, Bernard, thank you so much. Appreciate you taking a couple minutes.
Let's do this instead.
All right, I am here with Tini Howard. Tini, how is your con going so far?
Really great, thanks.
When's the last time you were here at New York Comic Con? How many times have you been to this show?
I've only been to this show a few times. This is maybe my third or fourth, which sounds crazy, but I guess when you work in comics, you go to some shows every year. I haven't been to the show a lot. I live in LA now, so it's a long haul to get out here, and so I definitely haven't been since before the pandemic. But it's cool to be back. Definitely in a different place now than I was last time. So.
Yeah, so I think we've checked in with you on the show throughout sort of this Krakoa era, and I think we're finally at a point where this era is wrapping up. Is it odd to? I want to phrase this correctly because I feel like the writer's room has gone from being fairly, I don't want to use the word diverse because I don't think it was ever that diverse to begin with, but it's gotten like pretty exclusively white male-y. I'm wondering what your emotions are as this wraps up, and you were a huge architect over the first couple of years of this line. How does it feel sort of looking at it from the outside?
Well, I mean, one of the cool things I can do now that I'm not working on it is enjoy it as a fan. I can, I can look at I can read things like X-Men Red and Immortal as, like you guys do. I loved Dark X-Men. Like, I got to read it before before the fans did, but still not until it was done. And getting to be a part of it that way is fun and interesting. It doesn't feel like for one, I'm on great terms with all of those people and everyone at Marvel. My just scheduling issues are what made it so I was like, all right, I'm going to do other things now. But it feels, really cool. I feel like I built something with a lot of people that I love very much that I'm very proud of. And those books are pieces of art that will always remain. And it's something I'm incredibly proud to have been a part of. And I think it's cool to see what people do with ideas, some of which are things that I, wanted to touch, and some of them are things I didn't get to, and some of them are just things I've wondered about, and I really respect and love, the writers and the artists in the room right now. So it's, I won't comment on the diversity, but I'll say that...
You don't have to.
Yeah, but I think they're all kick-ass writers doing a kick-ass job.
I know that was a heavy question.
Yeah.
So
hard opener.
I appreciate you doing your best to answer that one. But the legacy of this era, I think, is going to be tied inextricably to the things that you brought to it. So what do you think your legacy is coming out of this from having worked on this line?
Geraldine the Pop-Tart Queen. She's definitely the most impactful character that I brought to the Marvel Universe, and I think that we're going to continue to see ripples of her power as we go on. No, I mean, obviously it's Captain Britain, right?
So, right now, you are over at DC. We're doing Catwoman. What is the biggest difference between working with the X-Writers Room and what it is that you're doing over there as part of the Bat Office?
I really like working collaboratively with other people. I'm not, the kind of person that comes into the room and says, all right, I've got it, don't touch it. And all the people I worked with in the X office were like that. And, a lot of these people are my friends. like John and Jerry and Ben and those guys, those are my friends. Chip and Matt, those are my friends. Like, so it doesn't feel like a hugely, different experience on that part. It feels like I went from... The X Office was really great at empowering me to know that I can do what feels like just natural brainstorming with my friends who are just geniuses, who are also writers and incredible minds. And I can brainstorm with them and we can come up with stuff and then we can make it a story. That's what I do with my, the writers and the editors I work with at DC who are my friends, and that's what I do with, at Marvel. And when I say they're my friends, I don't mean that like we were all besties and that's why we get hired. I mean like I became friends with them. Like I'm a creative person. My whole life I've been, ever since I was, playing with Barbies and then I became a D&D nerd, like shared creative experiences are how I bond. So I go into these rooms a stranger and I come out with a bunch of best friends, and that's been the same most places I've gone.
A lot of the books that you were working on as part of the X line were not the biggest stars, right? Like Excalibur is an amazing book that I absolutely love, and yet it's not like X-Men, right?
Yeah.
Like when Ben Percy sits down to write X-Force and Wolverine, he's going to have a longer leash. When you get a chance to write a book like Catwoman, right, which is such a prestige character, do you feel like you have a longer leash that you can tell longer stories that are going to last for, a long... What I mean is, like, books are going to just run and run and run based on, like, the popularity of that character.
Yeah, I mean, there's a real gift to... And a lot of that is, editorial structure. There's been a lot of... Marvel fans have noticed there's been a lot of contraction of issue, like series lengths over the past few years. It is a really nice chance to stretch on an ongoing title, and it's a real honor to get one of those jobs. And yeah, it does feel different. But honestly, writing Betsy through 3 different books felt like kind of practice for that was the longest leash I'd been given on the biggest stage I'd ever been given. And so I really did a lot of learning as I was going, and I'm really grateful for it, because I definitely take a lot of what I learned writing Betsy for so long into writing Selena and writing Harley.
I think that's really great, and I'm really excited that you get to continue to write these really powerful women characters, right? Like, that's got to be exciting too, right?
I mean, a big thing about it is just that they haven't been very frequently written by women.
This is so funny because I don't know if you heard about this. Rob Liefeld claimed that he draws the best Wolverine more than anybody in the world.
I've never heard of that person. I don't know who that is.
Okay. And immediately I started making a list of all these amazing artists, and someone immediately commented, they were like, these are all men. Don't they let women draw Wolverine? And the same is true for so many characters in both, big 2 universes, that women don't often get the chance to actually write them. So what is exciting about that?
Well, I mean, and I obviously, on Catwoman, I had, women like Joelle, and even before that, there were women writing Catwoman. So I don't want to act like I'm, the first. But it's a sense of, when you're a woman, there's a lot of untread ground that you feel like you can write, you can grow with, because, and it's not a bad thing. It's not that, the men writing Selena don't want to Ramsran was great, right? He writes a great Selena, but I think when you're a man and you're writing a woman, often it's very kind and they're thoughtful, but there's a sense of I don't want to brutalize her on page. I don't want to put her through certain kinds of violence as a male writer, which is totally understandable, and I do not have that problem. I am writing a very real female experience in Catwoman. What means a lot to me is when I have women readers are I punched the air at this line because I felt this way at work and no one's ever said it, the whole pitch of that run were the women the ignored women of Gotham who are actually very powerful. So those are like, and it's things that come from like, oh, just being a woman and watching movies, you know, like I'm a huge Martin Scorsese fan, watching, you know, movies like Goodfellas and Casino, where I was like, the women are the strong, powerful characters here, and the men have power, and the women attempt to exert it, and the narrative knows that it's wrong, that they have their legs cut out from under them. And that was really important to me, was to like do this feminine perspective where it's like the narrative knows that you and I are in an agreement where this world is hard if you're a woman, and this is the story about it. Harley is a different kind of like feminine expression, where I very much joke that Harley Quinn is about crazy girl rights and weird girl rights, and that book is just about me laughing at a lot of the bizarre things that pop into your head when you're a mentally ill woman living her best life. And, you know, taking the anxieties that I have, and I know a lot of people share, I'm not unique in that, and making them something we can laugh about on the page together. And it does not hurt that it's Sweetie Boo drawing it, and it just looks like a just candy-colored dream.
The art is absolutely gorgeous. So I am really glad that you are getting to, you know, take these characters in these directions. I think it's really, really exciting. And just in general, you know, now that this era of, I mean, obviously we're an X-Men podcast, this X era is wrapping up. I just want to thank you, because I think you were such like an integral part of it, and it makes it so memorable because of your contributions to it.
Thank you. That means a huge amount. I have such great memories of everything in the room. I mean, I just went to the Hellfire Gala at San Diego and partied with everyone.
I did notice your pin.
Yeah, you know, that's it's great. It's like, and I feel like, you know, again, like I said, creative experiences are how I bond with people. So I bonded really deeply with Jordan and John and, you know, Jerry and Ben, with Marcus, the, you know, Excalibur artist, even, you know, with Annalise and Sarah, my editors, with Eric, our colorist, and Ariana Marr, who did our incredible letters. Like, I'm bonded with those people, you know? And I'm grateful for it. I don't have a lot. I'm a very passionate person, but I'm pretty focused in my passions, and like, I'm alive to do creative stuff. So I'm glad that I get to be here and do it.
That's really great. One last question. You know, obviously we've been talking about some of your DC work. What else is in store? What else can people be looking for as you go on to new chapters?
Well, if you follow my Substack, tinihoward.substack.com, I have a creator-owned comic that I work on intermittently with now fellow X-Men artist Philip Sevy. If you've been reading X-Men Unlimited, we do a comic called Phenomenosity. There are 3 chapters, like 30 pages up. It's a sci-fi noir about a girl investigating the death of her best friend in a city that's under a atmospheric event. So normal. You can also follow me there. That's where I'll be announcing upcoming projects. I'm working on a novel, things like that. And I've got some things coming from DC that I have not announced yet, but there's some really exciting stuff in the hopper. I'm working my ass off. And yeah, working on an ongoing comic. I'm still on Harley. I'm still on Catwoman. We're in the middle of Gotham War. Go check it out. I promised fighting and kissing, and everyone's like, where's the kissing? And I'm like, it's coming. We're halfway through. So.
Awesome. All right, Tini, thank you so much for taking a couple minutes. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I'm here with Lucas Werneck. Lucas, how is your New York Comic Con going?
Oh my God, it's amazing. Completely chaos, but amazing.
Kind of surprised how crowded it is for a Thursday. I mean, this seems like way more people than normal, right?
Yeah, it's my first time here.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's my first time here at New York Comic Con. It's my first time in North America, so it's kind of be an amazing experience. It's been like a dream come true being here.
Now, how long have you been in New York? Are you making a vacation out of this?
Yes. I'm here for now. That's my 3rd day here, and I do it for the whole week. So yeah, I'm very excited to see what the city like. I already ate the famous cheesecake from the juniors something place. I already do the Central Park stuff and all the very touristy stuff, but yeah, it's amazing.
I'm so glad you're getting to experience all of that. So welcome to New York.
Thank you.
And Lucas, you have been responsible for so many of the classic looks of this era. How do you go about coming up with an original design for what one of these characters is going to look like in, let's say, a gala outfit or a new uniform? How do you approach that?
I think that the first thing is know the character. It's not something about I am wearing. It's about what the character wearing. You know, it's not about what I think. It's about what the character thinks. So, for example, when I make the Colossus Hellfire Gala outfit, he's very proud to be a Russian.
Yes.
So I know that he's gonna need something from Russia, something that remembers his home. So and the touch of the magic here is being him sexy. He looks great. It's a party. So yeah, that's the mindset that I have when I draw this kind of stuff.
Now, you've gone from design all the way to doing now cover work, interiors. How has that evolved with your own art style?
Yeah, in fact, start with the interiors, start with the pages, and after I start to make some cover art, which is great because I have the control of the whole process. When in my case, I do the inks, the pencilers, and the colors when I do the cover. So it's great. It's awesome for me as an artist. So and when Marvel started doing this kind of new projects with designs, it's oh my god, yes, because it's something that I really, really loved.
I think that's really great. We're seeing you being announced for some of these end of the Krakoan era projects. So how does that feel?
Oh my god, it's hard. It's this feeling of bittersweet kind of feeling because I really love what? Sorry.
No, Doug said.
Oh, it's okay.
So it's this kind of bittersweet kind of feeling because I really love this era.
Yes.
Immortal X-Men has been such great gift. Like working with Kieran Gillen is an honor, and it's a great comic art that we're doing together. And now working with Fall of X, it's kind of I can't say much, but it's big. It's something that
Very excited for it.
Yes.
And your work has been outstanding throughout.
Thank you.
So congratulations on all of that. Just walk me through real quick your artistic process. You're doing traditional pencils, inks. What are you using for colors? Do you ever do digital?
Okay, usually everything is digital.
Okay.
So I make the pencils and the inks, and sometimes the colors too. But in some cases, for example, in some cover art, or that I have more time to do it, I love to make this sketch digitally, make the blue lines, and make the inks in a traditional way.
Okay.
And after go back to the computer and make the colors. But usually is digital everything. Yeah.
So right before we started talking,
Okay.
you had two cosplayers come over,
Yes.
cosplaying your Iron Man and White
Frost.
Queen wedding looks.
Yes.
What is it like when people take what you do on the page and three-dimensionalize it like that?
It's the best honor for an artist scene because it's like okay, it works, the reader really loved this and my work is worth it, it's this kind of feeling. It's kind of crazy too. A lot of things that happen here I'm gonna need to talk to my therapist after this, but it's as I said before, it's been an amazing journey, and I'm so glad to be here, and that's awesome.
I am so excited that you get to be here and you get to see this, actual physical manifestation of your work. It's got to be so cool. So congratulations. Thanks for taking a couple minutes. And is there anything else other than what you've been doing with the X books that you're working on that you want to promote?
Read X-Men, read Immortal X-Men. It's been amazing. Fall of X is coming with a lot of great stuff.
Okay.
Hard stuff, but great. I'm doing the new series from Dead X-Men. I'm doing the cover. So the Dead X-Men group, I don't want to say as much to give spoilers, but it's great too. And yeah, there's a lot of coming, a lot of work with Marvel, and yeah, I can't say as much.
That's okay. We're going to wait for the good stuff. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right, folks, I am here with X-Men artist extraordinaire, Joshua Cassara. Josh, you told me before I started recording that this is your first ever New York Comic Con. Is that true?
This is, and it's the first time anybody called me extraordinary or extraordinaire. Yes, my first time ever, not New York, but my first New York Comic Con. So it was my first, 2 hours of, and it's already been, already a zoo.
It is way more crowded here than I would have expected for a Thursday, but it seems like there's a lot of people coming through. You're selling these absolutely beautiful enamel pins. Where did the idea for the pins come from, and how long have you been doing this now with the pins?
Well, we did originally I did a Happy Wolverine sketch, and my wife thought it was like super cute, and she's like, let's make a sticker, and then it evolved into let's make it into a pin, and then she's like, let's make a set of pins, and it's like, okay, well, what characters do you want to do? And I said, well, I designed the Mystique Hellfire Gala outfit, and that was really popular, and so we said, let's do that. And we had it for San Diego Comic-Con originally. It wasn't going to be an exclusive. We just said we're going to order a set of pins and we're going to have them. And then here in New York we have if you open one and it's got a golden Mystique, which then it's got the gold enamel, it's you get a prize. We've got sketches. I've got an original page of X-Men art from I think issue 24, and I don't know. People seem to love them, and I wear mine everywhere I go.
That's fantastic. So I did call you extraordinaire for a reason, and that's because you do seem to be the X-artist of the moment. If you look across the panel of artists that are in the X world right now, you're writing the headline book, and how does it feel to be part of like that pantheon of sort of X-Men artists, the greats?
It was super intimidating.
Yeah.
I mean, C.B. Cebulski called me, and when the editor-in-chief calls you, it's either you're in deep doo-doo, or I don't know if I can say on here, so you can bleep that out. All right. And I either thought I was going to be in trouble or something cool is happening, and so he said, hey, Pepe's heading off on, other pastures, and he's asking me if I wanted to jump on the X-Men, and so immediately I'm just going through in my head everybody who's drawn the X-Men that I grew up loving. I came of age, it's Jim Lee X-Men, of course, but I love Mark Silvestri and Chris Bacalo and Frank Quitely, Pepe Larraz. I have to follow that, good luck with that. But and then at the same time, I had to be like, just get psyched up and, hey, I'm just going to do the way I do it, and it's pretty awesome. I already loved drawing the mutants. I was so stoked to come on and do X-Force during the Krakoan era. And, now I'm on X-Men, I couldn't be happier.
So when you started on X-Force, you've got a very, I want to say almost organic style to what it is that you're doing. A lot of vines, a lot of, you're on the island a lot of leaves and things like that.
I'll be right back.
It's okay. I feel like what Jerry's had you do on X-Men has kind of pulled your art in different ways. Yeah. You've had to draw in sort of a different style than what it was that you were doing on X-Force. What has that change been like for you artistically?
A little bit. We're on Krakoa, so like everything is kind of that techno-organic base, with like forges, the things that he's making and designing and creating. So it's not that much difference. I think some of the settings are a little bit different. What Ben and I did, there's, like the plant monster thing. I didn't really draw plant monster kind of stuff before I did it, but, this is the kind of things that he was writing, and I think we melded really well, and I just kind of leaned right into it, and I love now I love drawing it, and so I think Ben just kept leaning harder and harder into it because he's like, oh, this looks awesome too, let's keep going along there. And I love doing it. So I think, Jerry's like, but, I'm going to have to draw a space station this time, but like, it's really nice to draw something like cold and sterile, like a space station or a
I'm thinking like the inside of the Children of the Vault.
Yeah, well, that's stuff too.
Like
yeah,
that,
something. Yeah, something a little bit like that. It's the futuristic, architecture and things like that. Or that's also fun because it's a break from what I'm drawing. It also shows there's some contrast because if I draw everything like super organic-y and whatever, like, again, contrast is always good to show what you can do.
I think one of the things that you're known for is having a fairly detailed style. There's a lot of line work on the page. It's not just contours. You're showcasing the surface of objects, people, muscles. You're also doing that with ink washes. Yeah. How does that work when you have a time constraint and you've got to get a book in on time?
So this is just a really long way of saying I'm just a really slow artist. It's tough. It's the gray washes are definitely an extra that doesn't need to happen. I could turn in the stuff without it. It's something that I like to let it go and look. If any of the stuff I do comes out as it's released as a black and white book, that's kind of the way I let it go. I always want it to look like it'll go as a black and white, and I want it to read really well. I don't like to leave so much up to the colorists. Some artists do. I kind of like to have a little more control on the textures or the look or filling up the page with some of the grays or some of the textures and details. I should get away from that. Sometimes I do. And under deadline, you do, like maybe I'm not going to draw a background in that panel. And you got to decide storytelling-wise if that's a smart decision or not. But I don't ever like to have a page that looks like it's mailed in. Like maybe I might mess up on some anatomy or nose or it's just a bad drawing. But I never want it to look like I just mailed it in. I always want to put the effort in. So, the editors are pretty good about knowing what my schedule is, and you got to be honest with them about what you can do, and they're pretty real. Give me a little bit of breaks on hey, maybe it takes me a little bit longer. Give me another couple days. So, but at the end of the day, I got my publishing deadlines and don't agree to it if I can't do it. So I don't think they've ever had to halt print for anything I've drawn.
That's good. I just know there's got to be time constraints because, your work has such beautiful detail to it. So, so we are coming to what appears to be kind of the end of the Krakoan era. Is X-Men still where you think you want to be artistically, or do you think there's sort of new adventures for you ahead, either at Marvel or elsewhere?
Well, I'm exclusive with Marvel for a while still, so I'm going to be... I honestly don't know where I am after Fall of X. I know where it's going. Actually, I was just talking to Jerry, the writer of the X-Men, just a few minutes ago, and he had some really awesome scenes that he knows that he's wanting me to draw as far as we're working, making out the schedule in these last issues. And I'm super pumped now. And it kind of reinvigorates me for the end. I don't know where I land after Fall of X. I love being in Mutantville, if you want to call it that. The fans are awesome. There's a fan for every mutant. They will let you know because even if you draw them in the background for one panel and don't have any speaking part or anything, they will message you and say, thank you so much, you just made my year. So I love you guys. And but that's a fun thing with the X-Men. And a fun thing about the Krakoan era too is we've gotten so many from all these different eras and all the villains and all these things that you're getting to draw and the writers are able to get to play with. And I think as an artist I get to play with too. So it's a lot of fun. And now I'm used to drawing team books. It's really hard because I don't feel very comfortable drawing most of these characters because I haven't drawn them enough.
Sure.
If you're doing only a Spider-Man book, yeah, you have other villains, but you're always drawing that same character all the time. I would like to draw a single character book sometime. Maybe I can be comfortable and consistent with the character. But I love actually the next issue is a new mutant. Maybe I've never even heard of sometimes. Or I've always seen that character, and now I actually get to draw him. Excuse me. Right now I'm looking into open page of Quentin Quire, and I had never drawn Quentin Quire until I was on X-Force, and all of a sudden I'm drawing him, and now I'm in love. I love drawing him. He's such a quirky, fun character. He's such a little jerk and a little turd, but the way Ben wrote him, he has quite a bit of heart, and that was a lot of fun. And I just, and now I'm on the X-Men, and although we did bring Forge over, but now I get to do Laura and, actually Jean Grey again, but I got to do Scott in his 90s uniform because, again, I'm 13-year-old me wants to draw Scott in his 90s uniform.
Well, and that's the Krakoan law, right? They started off by saying if you wanted to draw somebody in a certain costume, you were allowed to, right?
Yeah, because Jonathan Hickman said, nobody just wears the same clothes every day,
yep.
And you can wear your different outfits, from whatever era, and that's brilliant and awesome, especially for the artists, because, it's great because the editors can't really say no, and I'm like, I want to draw them in this, and they're like, okay, I don't think anybody likes it. I'm like, yeah, but I do.
All right, last question. You were having a conversation just before we started talking with a lovely couple, and one of the things you mentioned was that before you were doing this, you were bartending?
Yeah.
So how has that been for you to go from, just kind of plucking away behind a bar to putting in the work and putting in the hours to get to the level that you're at right now?
So I went from the most sociable job to the least sociable job.
Okay.
Where it's now at conventions, I'm just starting conventions, I actually talk to other human beings, but I'm usually just in a hole drawing all day. And I was able to incorporate some bartending stuff. I drew the Green Lagoon and wanted to always incorporate that. And, somebody's got to have a drink in their hand somewhere in the background. So I married the two together at some point. But I love this. I get to create more. I get to tell stories, and this is the stories that I loved as a kid. And so I bartended. It was always my job. It was never like a career or anything like that. It was how I paid my bills. And this, I found what I really love to do creatively.
Josh, I hope you have an amazing first New York Comic Con. Thank you so much for taking a couple of minutes today.
Cheers, Adam. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks.
And that does it for this year's New York Comic Con Super Special. Hope you enjoyed hearing from some of our favorite comics creators. As always, you can follow me on social at Adam Reck on Blue Sky, whatever Twitter is at Arthur Stacy, and on Instagram at Adam Reck. Next week, we are celebrating the spooky season with our annual Halloween episode. Will lots of characters go to hell? Tune in to find out. Until then, this has been Battle of the Atom. We hope you survive the experience.